Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Ray, and tonight I've got a full house with me. Welcome tonight, Mac
Good evening.
and Gio.
What is good, everyone?
On today's podcast, we're going to be previewing match week 3 of the Premier League. Before we get into it, though, don't forget to follow us on our social media, both on X and Instagram. Our handle is at house of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. And lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. All right, guys. This is match week 3, and we are already gonna get a international break after this one. But of course, we have a maybe one of the bigger matches that most fans, even neutrals, are looking forward to in the Premier League calendar, and that's Gio, Man U versus Liverpool. This one will easily take the game of the week, and so we're going to preview that straight away. Mac, you noted here that both games ended as a tie between these two teams last season. But Gio, how do you sort of see this game playing out this time around on Sunday?
I actually think it's gonna play out a lot closer than people believe, or even as I believed. I just think it's too early to kind of obviously kind of panic in terms of being on the Man U boat. It's a little too early. Again, there are a lot of ways in which Man U could have won that game, or could have kept it 0-0 and still got points out of it. But I think they're going to be well prepared for this one. I think they've had it circled, on their calendar, well to the start of preseason, knowing that this matchup was going to be this early into the season. I think, obviously we have yet to see the best of Rashford, or anywhere close to the best of Rashford. But I think overall, I think the team looks a little smoother. The attack just looks a little bit more threatening, albeit not that threatening because they've only scored 1 goal this season. Oh no, 2 goals this season. But I think they're slowly building a good chemistry up there, especially with the likes of Garnacho and Xerxes. Hopefully, they both get the start there, put a little pressure on their back line, because when their back line is on, it allows Liverpool to kind of push up more, and kind of play that counterattack a little more. If Xerxes and Garnacho are starting on that area of the pitch, they're gonna have to be a little bit more respectful of their skill, and and then not be able to kind of push the tempo a little higher, as they would like, or as a lot of teams would like with Man U.
Yeah, we have to talk about personnel, and of course, we're going to talk about a little bit about the transfers soon. But to that point, you've already mentioned Xerxes maybe starting as a 9, and also what will happen in midfield. It's come out today that Mason Mount has has picked up an injury, so not great for Man U so far. But could we see another player coming in for them? Of course, we'll talk about the transfers, but I think with regards to the gameplay and sort of how both teams were set up, Man U, very much like how Brighton was the Achilles heel to Man U's playstyle, Man U are the kryptonite to Liverpool's playstyle, and being at home, it could be a difficult game for Liverpool. Mac, do you think that is the case, or do you think it'll be more one-sided than that?
I think you might be being slightly too generous towards Manchester United. I think, in going into this game, even with it being at Old Trafford, Liverpool are and should be clear favorites. If we look at the last 10 Premier League games, the aggregate score between these two teams are 26-7 in favor to Liverpool. So I understand we're throwing in a 5-0, a 7-0, so those numbers do add up, but it hasn't been close. And over the last 12 Premier League games against Liverpool, Manchester United have actually only won one of them. Their most recent kind of success against them has been against Liverpool, has been an FA Cup and knockout competition, which I'd argue Manchester United might be a little bit more set up to succeed in regards to how they've played over the last couple of seasons, especially under Erik ten Hag. So again, I think both of you might be feeling slightly too favorable to Manchester United. My more so interesting factor in terms of what I'm looking at, not to be disrespectful of Liverpool's initial 2 games, they had a much easier run in. They haven't faced a team, I would argue, on the same level as Brighton. And you could even make the argument that Manchester United, on their day, probably win that game, considering how the goals kind of shook out, the offside goal for Xerxes, stuff like that. So for me, Liverpool are the favorite. Even in this, you look at the mannerisms of the play style, I think it even kind of gears more towards them, where, as we've seen over the last couple of seasons under Ten Hag, where Manchester United are trying to kind of force chaos, force transitional moments, where that feeds in even more so to what I would argue what Arne Slot is trying to do, allow the opposition to progress forward in those waves, while they do maintain possession, and look for not just any moment to get the ball over the top and get in behind. Let's say that was more similar to Klopp, and maybe be a little bit more concise, maybe a little bit more selective in those air attacks. If they do that well, I think Manchester United may be in a world of hurt. The question for me of how well Manchester United are successful in this game, I think is going to be really up to a player I mentioned earlier, and that's going to be a Bruno Fernandes in that 10 position, and how well he does, not on the offensive side, because if assuming he walks in, he's not playing as kind of a false nine, if Xerxes does come in to start, I think for him, his defensive work is going to be the interesting part on Gravenberch, who's really had a strong come on for the last first couple of games of the season. Definitely an unheralded player going into the season. Maybe many people viewed him not as a solution to the six, but as played extremely well under Slot so far, and how well he's done in possession. And I think if Bruno Fernandes can kind of disrupt his game and make it go back to what Liverpool were trying to do before, where it was kind of Trent long ball over the top versus kind of slowly building it up and trying to get through the layers of play. I think that's going to be the benefit of Manchester United, because at that point you may get Liverpool playing out of rhythm, not really kind of having their pattern to play that they try to work all preseason towards. If they revert back, that might cause more confusion, which in favor should lead to Manchester United opportunities. So that's the matchup I'm very excited for. I do think Liverpool are the heavy favorites, even though and primarily because historically this matchup has been quite asked for Manchester United.
Well, you mentioned matchups there, and then great shout there with how Bruno Fernandes will play. I'm looking now at Gio the matchups on either attacking fronts from both teams, and we have Salah, who started 2 for 2, 2 games, 2 goals, I believe. Looks like he's sort of continued the form and looking good to start the season. He's likely going to be up either against Dallo or Mazraoui. Kind of take your pick there. Neither of them, I think, on any given day can keep up with them, but they must have a good game to sort of keep them quiet. On the flip side, you did mention Marcus Rashford. He hasn't had the greatest start to the season, but he is going to be playing on the left-hand side likely against Trent Alexander-Arnold, who loves to vacate his position. And though Marcus Rashford hasn't had a great start to the season, last season as well, he wasn't amazing. What team did he come on and score a banger against? Manchester City. So it could be a game where he turns his fortunes around. How are you liking those matchups, Gio? Is there a matchup that you're thinking would be critical for both or either team to win? And I guess just walk us through how you see the goals coming in for this game.
I mean, I think I like either matchup between, whether it's Garnacho versus Trent or Marcus versus Trent, simply because, neither of them are going to track back. So, Trent's going to push up, and Trent's not going to track back either. So, they're going to have a lot of open space to work with. So, ideally, who's been the hotter hand, I would say, coming from last season, heading into this season, I would say Garnacho, but this is sort of a risk you're willing to have to take if you're Ten Hag, is, am I going to get my guy going, and how am I going to get my guy going? And is this the opportunity where you're playing where you're playing a back where loves to push up, loves to vacate that space, like you said, where Rashford doesn't have to do much tracking back? Can he take advantage of that? It's the perfect opportunity to do so. So I think he does have to play his odds here and give Rashford the start. And, if it doesn't work early, say maybe 50 minutes in, 55 minutes in, I think we'll likely see that swap between him and Garnacho.
Okay, and Mac, I guess same question to you. Now we have seen some signings take place for the last couple of days. Most notably, Ugarte from PSG joining Manu. Will he get the start there? And can he sort of be the answer to Manu keeping the clean sheet and or getting the win here? And Keza joining Liverpool, Mac. Maybe you have some words for them. I definitely do. We can get to that later. But what are your thoughts on how Manu can line up in midfield, especially now that Mason Mount has picked up that injury and we've seen Casemiro and Kobe Mino stay starting the last two games.
So I actually think it's going to be a benefit for Mason Mount to be out of the picture for Manchester United, because that kind of forces Ten Hag's hand to, I would argue, play a better system. Either having Rashford playing as a striker, which I don't think is a horrible idea against his Liverpool team, or if you do end up switching into Xerxes, I think that's a plus. Because for me, the best winger on Manchester United thus far this season has been Amad Diallo. So I think you have to start him. And Rashford has been working, so you got to start Garnacho. I think that's where I'm at right now with Manchester United. You should be. I don't see a reason, unless for outside of the football pitch reasons, why Rashford should be starting. Do you want to build up his value so you can maybe flip him down the row? Sure, great. Kudos to you, but that's not going to help you win games this season. So in the midfield, though, if we're looking specifically at that area of the pitch, if I am Ugarte, let's say I'm part of his team, I work behind the scenes, like the scenes, I'm related to him. I'm saying, hey, maybe you don't want to start this game. This shouldn't be your first test here. Might be a little bit of a trouble spot, because I would argue one of the main reasons why PSG are looking to move on only a year after signing him and willing to take 10 less million euros to get rid of him in a way after what you signed him for is because he, to their system, playing as a sole six, he's very aggressive. He wants to jump into tackles. He wants to kind of be very front foot, which puts a lot of pressure on that space behind. But now moving over to Manchester United and playing in a double pivot along Kobe Manu, maybe he has more cover there, so it might work better for him. But this first game, I would argue Manchester United's biggest rivals in the league. I don't know if this is your first test you really want to face. Maybe come out as a sub, let Casemiro kind of stink up the joint for another game. Hopefully get lower ratings even on his pace in FIFA, do what he needs to do, and then come in to be kind of the cleaner and fix up all the shit that he's kind of laid out. Because realistically, that's what will happen if Casemiro don't start. So if I'm him, no. However, if I'm Ten Hag, I'm throwing him in right away. Let's see what he can do. And just maybe have to make sure that he's playing along Kobe Manu and I'm playing a very, very low block, which again, probably wouldn't be what they would want to do, considering how they've started this thus far this season. But I think if you're Ten Hag, you want to get in right away because you need a result. If you come even away with a tie like you did last season in this fixture, you can argue, even though it's the same result, this is a step forward for Manchester United. So I think that's vitally important. So Ugarte, it depends on who you're asking if he should or will he play.
Well, I want to ask, of course, our resident Man U fan Gio on his thoughts, because I think it's kind of been touted that he's Ugarte, that is Casemiro's direct replacement. Though, do you, Gio, see him as a direct replacement, or do you think maybe with this game, with injuries happening, Casemiro and Ugarte start next to each other, very combative midfield, Kobe Mino is a 10, and maybe Fernandez as a false nine, based on sort of just how Ten Hag's been starting? Or do you think, like Mac, he should be starting Ugarte and then Kobe Mino next to each other, and then Bruno as a 10? How would you want to see the Man U team line up this Sunday?
I just don't think he starts. I think it's a little bit too much pressure on himself. I think Ten Hag understands that. Playing against Liverpool, probably your biggest rivals at this point, and to come in and to worry about not having to make a big mistake is I think it's too much trouble. I think you bring him on, obviously knowing how shot the legs are of Casemiro, you kind of have to plan for that, and you're gonna have to drop Fernandez back a little, and kind of see what you can do with him there. But in terms of starting Ugarte, I think it's a little early. If and a strong if Menu is up or tied late in the game for fresh leg wise, I think Ugarte is gonna come in and he's gonna be a team player, and he's gonna be happy to take a card wherever he can, to stop play, because I think he's that type of player.
Fantastic.
But I think if the game is really close, I think also he'll come in to kind of disrupt Liverpool's flow. I think that's very important, because when Liverpool does get it going, it is hard to stop, especially when they want to be able to ping that long ball to um, uh, Luis Diaz, sorry, and Mo Salah. Darweezy, I don't know. I'm not too worried about him at this point. But it's more so disrupting the flow of a Gravenberch. I think it's the most important thing. Not allowing him too much time on the ball, because we saw the last two games where he excelled is when he's had time on the ball and he's able to have time to think and either take it upon himself to drive the ball, or kind of release early and kind of push up the pitch himself as well. So I think those are the key points in terms of Manu kind of succeeding in a way.
Okay, on that same note, I guess I'll just do a quick mention that our lovely partnership of McFred is no longer going to be moving forward, and in the Man U end, McTominay has left for Napoli for a decent amount. I think it was 30 million pounds, I believe, Mac.
Yeah.
So or euros. So great for him, I guess. He gets a move, and of course, Man U get some income in for that. On the flip side, Gio, you already mentioned Darwin Nunez, not a concern of yours. Could he even be a concern in general? Because Jota's been starting the last two games, Mac, and with Chiesa coming in, there's going to be some more battle and competition for any of those, essentially two spots left open, because likely Salah is the most nailed on starter from the front three. Personally, I'm going to get your thoughts soon, Mac, but personally, I think it's a great signing because it's a relatively good gamble to take at this point. You're going to take a player that is kind of in his prime years, looking to bounce back, has had some injury concerns over the last couple of years, but we can see some quality, and it's really just a way for him to test himself and put some competition and put some pressure on some of those Liverpool attackers to perform. Otherwise, he can come in, make a name for himself. So I think for the price and sort of the fact that it wasn't a signing that needed to be made, it's a great gamble to make here. What are your thoughts, Mac, on that signing and or any other Liverpool transfer activity?
So there isn't really much reaction-wise in terms of Liverpool transfer activity, because I think they've kidnapped the child, can confirm. Chiesa, and then also the goalkeeper, who they immediately sent back out on loan, is be like, you will eventually replace Alisson, but not yet. So I get that. Chiesa, I think it depends on how you're kind of looking at it in a vacuum for that money. There's no reason why you want to do it. Right? There is absolutely, I think if you would ask the majority of other Premier League teams or high-end clubs around the world to get a player of that, what we've seen, individual quality, you're not, to get for that amount of money, that's pennies in comparison. I understand it's like 12.5 million pounds, I think it was, or euros, whatever. The point being, that's in comparison to a lot of these other transfers that we're talking about, not a lot. You use the comparison that you just spoke about. McTominay went for 30, so what are we doing here, realistically? However, I think the interesting part for me is where his best season was back in 2019 and the 1920 season, which is a long time ago. And that's for Fiorentina. And he was part of I think he was on the Euro in the 2020 season, the Euro when Italy went on to win it. He was part of the team of the tournament. So that was kind of his breakout moment. A lot of eyes were on him, but he has had a lot of injuries. Over the last three Serie A seasons combined, he scored a total of 13 goals. So it has been great returns on that end. But if you watch him play, you've seen some of his best games. You're like, there is untapped potential here that maybe the right manager hasn't coaxed out from him, or maybe that he may never reach to. Who knows? I think the interesting part for me for this season is I don't think he's going to be really much a key factor for Liverpool. I think the interesting part is where if he does adapt, if he does grow, and he does start to see some of that talent come out from him, is he... I know this is not a fair shout. There are no near comparisons. But worst case, if Salah's gone next year, he could theoretically start on the right wing. And that's another option that you have in the right situation that you could make it work. So for me, it's a good gamble, but I have a lot of reservations about it considering how the last couple of seasons have gone. But would I take this risk? Absolutely, for that cost. There's no reason why not.
Exactly. I guess quickly, Joe, before we wrap up this part, any thoughts on the Liverpool incoming signings, Keza, and of course the Georgian goalkeeper Mamardashvili, who's of course joined Valencia for the upcoming season on loan. What are your thoughts on any of that transfer
Uh,
activity?
in terms of the keeper, I think they're just obviously prepping for the future. Obviously, more so a gamble of anything for these ones. Just because you just are unaware of how he'll progress. You know, if he's gonna have a tough season at Valencia, how that affects his overall confidence. But I think the signing of Chiesa, I think honestly is again another gamble. I think they have ultimate upside in this investment. But if it's a downside, hey, look, he wasn't playing that well at Juventus anyways. So it was kind of a gamble for us. The fans won't be too harsh on him, just knowing where he was at prior. But hey, the upside is there, like Max said. That's when he peaked in terms of the Euro, being on the team of the tournament. And we've seen glimpses of him where he's been outstanding. So Liverpool thrive in that front three system, and I think given the opportunities and given that the right game, right scenario, I think he can thrive. Of course, I think he's shown that he can do that. But I think at this point, I don't think we'll see him much, say the first game. But I just think it'll take time for him to kind of build chemistry, especially with offensive players. It requires a lot of chemistry. Whether it's those runs through the seams or runs in behind. He's gonna have to talk that through with his midfielders, with his other front three teammates, and really figure it out. But don't expect much from him this weekend. If he does score, I'll be devastated because my words tend to come back and haunt me.
Yeah, well, of course, we'll keep an eye out on that game and cover that in our next podcast. We'll take a quick break here. We'll come back previewing some more Premier League action taking place this coming weekend. So stay with us, guys. Welcome back to Hustle Footy, guys. We are going to continue our podcast now, previewing another game that's taking place this weekend. And Mac, this one is an interesting one. Newcastle versus Spurs. Now, you could argue both teams haven't started the season amazingly. Some injuries and some personal issues for both teams, but these teams, of course, split the series, if you may say, last season, both of them winning at home respectively. Do you see Spurs coming into Newcastle and picking up sort of a surprising result here, or do you think Newcastle's form at home will just make it very, very difficult for Spurs to leave with a point at all?
So if I were Sandro Tonali and I'm a betting man, I would be again betting on myself because this is going to be the return of the Premier League to Sandro Tonali at St. James's Park, because he played midweek against Forest in the Carabao Cup, I think it was. But no, for me, I think given the most recent results, I'm very interested, very excited to see this game, because this is, I feel like, the part of the table I'm most excited for in terms of what's going to happen by the end of this year, where anywhere from 4 to 10, you can put them all in a snow globe, shake them around. I don't know who's going to come out on top. For this individual matchup, if we just look at historical results, and especially at home for Newcastle, I think that they should kind of favor themselves. In addition, I think what they've done more recently over the last couple Premier League games is where they still haven't figured out the major question on their starting 11 with Tonali back. Aside from center half, now Sen Botman, I think he picked up an injury. They're still looking to get me reinforcements. There is on the right wing position because Almiron had a good first season at Eddie Howe, didn't play well last year, hasn't really caught the flames thus far in preseason or the beginning of the season, where they shifted over to playing a front three of Harvey Barnes, Isak, and Anthony Gordon. And I think against an ultra high pressing, aggressive, forthcoming Tottenham attack, I think those three as a front three together, I think are going to have an abundance of opportunities to be able to go in and create opportunities with both Udogie and Mickey Van de Ven depths to make the game. So I do lean Newcastle in that way. If Van de Ven and Udogie are both playing, still more even, but I think because of how Tottenham's system is set up, with Newcastle playing at home, I think they're going to have, like I said, abundance of opportunities to create in transition against the Spurs side. As well as, even though a game against Everton, which Everton are doing what they do towards the beginning of the season, which is AKA shitting the bed. Tottenham played well against them. Without Solanke, Richarlison, I think rumors had it over the course of the summer where he may be leaving. He's still there, maybe not featuring. They played Brandon Johnson as a striker. I don't think Tottenham are going to have the physicality to be able to kind of get in and kind of muck it up in the box as they need to do if Newcastle are playing well enough defensively, and historically they have done. There's still doubts there. I think Fabian Schär, I think he's out for this game as well. Botman's out, so maybe a center half that might be an area of the pitch, but you're playing with really an unrecognized striker, in my opinion, if you're Spurs. So very excited for this game. I lean Newcastle, but like I said, this is the type of this matchup for the rest of the season from 4 to 10. I can't just wait to see what happens.
Yeah, this is low key a very, very interesting game to have so early in the season because both teams I think have a win and a tie. Newcastle, of course, like you mentioned, Mac, have their big signing from last summer back, and Sandro Tonali. He's going to look to kickstart his career. Basically, he kind of has a new return to his club, and this is a great game to do it in with his home crowd, of course, supporting him and himself. Bruno Guimaraes definitely needs some help in that midfield, and definitely have him come in and show things up there. On the flip side, I'm liking how Son has started the season. I think even though they will be missing Solanke, they were able to score 4 goals against Everton, a poor Everton side. I just think there's going to be a lot of goals, a lot of action in this game. So even though I do agree, Mac, that Newcastle should edge it based on quality overall on the pitch and having that home form, Gio, I'm just not sure it's going to be as one-sided, and I think it's going to be very chaotic. A lot of goals will have to, I think, come from mistakes. I just hope it's a high-scoring game. What are your thoughts, Gio, on how this game will play out?
No, that's exactly what we're hoping for, and that's exactly what I think will happen. I think Newcastle really haven't just proven themselves from last year, obviously having a rough season. But I think Spurs are the perfect team to kind of exploit, their space. I think the thing about Newcastle is, yes, they're good on paper, but they are a team that likes to kind of cheat a little and kind of push and inch their way up that pitch, whether it be Kieran Trippier, anybody in that defense, anybody in that midfield. They want to go and score goals. They love scoring goals, and who I forgot the midfielder's name already. Brazilian.
Bruno Guimaraes?
Bruno Guimaraes?
No, the other one.
Joe Linton.
Joe Linton. That guy loves to, as Ray would say, likes to vacate his position and get into the box and get dirty. That guy loves to leave his position. So does Bruno Guimaraes at times. So, and Spurs being Spurs, we know they love to kind of hit on the counter. So, that being said, I think they'll have a plethora of opportunities to try and score some goals there. So Newcastle really have to be careful, be very careful, simply because Spurs put 4 in the back of the net last week. So who's to say they can't do another 2 or 3 this game?
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting one, especially because you kind of what we talked about with the Liverpool Man U game, where it is an international break coming up. You do want to get a win, so it carries you not just to the next week, but to the next game week. So confidence for some of these players that are starting the season is going to be huge for them to sort of put in a good performance, but also get the result here. So an interesting match to watch. I'm gonna then open it up to all of us here. We'll take a look at the remaining games from this weekend and pick one out that you guys are looking forward to. I'll go first. My game that I'm gonna be looking forward to is Chelsea Crystal Palace. Now, Chelsea were 6-2 winners last time out in the Premier League. But they're recording. They actually lost to Servette, I believe, the side in the Europa Conference League. They did go through on aggregate, so they are going to be part of the Europa Conference League. Woohoo! But this turnaround for them against a Crystal Palace team that hasn't started the season well is going to be a testing one for them. It looks like Mark Gay will be staying at Crystal Palace from what we are sort of seeing this late into the window. So that's a great sign for them. Of course, I think as well, it's been confirmed, Mac, if I'm not mistaken, Nketiah has signed for Crystal Palace, and I think he's going to be good long term. I'm not exactly expecting him to come in this game to really start and score goals so early, but I think long term, maybe partnering with Mateta now that Jordan Ayew has vacated his long serving time at Crystal Palace, he can be one of the main guys with Eze there. So I'm excited to see what Crystal Palace can put together, and if they get a quote unquote surprising win against an informed Chelsea, this could be a great way for them to kick on and hopefully now move themselves up in the standings. So that's a game that I'm going to look forward to, seeing if Chelsea, who should be winning this game, can slip up. And of course, that means more for us to sort of discuss, and of course, number of memes coming out after that. So I'll toss it to you then, Gio. Is there anything that you want to mention for the Chelsea Crystal Palace game, or are there any other game that is sort of standing out to you from this weekend?
Yeah, I would say Villa and Leicester City is my game of the week. I think I'm not off that Villa wagon just yet from last season, being Mac and myself's dark horse team. I think, yeah, it's going to be another tough week for Villa. I think they are kind of on a high still from last season. I don't think they're quite off the high horse yet, but they need to come back to reality sooner rather than later. I don't think it'd be best for them to go into the international break, with the record they have, and scoring as little as they have. And Leicester isn't an easy opposition. Prior to that break, they're very scrappy. We know they are. They've been in and out of the Premier League, but deservingly so. I wouldn't say so, but they have some decent veteran presence in Jamie Vardy, who can squeeze out a goal here and there, and has been in and out of the Prem, so he knows the tricks and trades of the game. So he's going to be a dangerous one to look out for if I'm Villa. Not pressing too high, because he does like to kind of slip in on that counter attack and make that run. So yeah, that's going to be a tighter game than what a lot of people are assuming, based on Leicester being newly promoted and everything like that.
Yeah, and of course, it's a game where we'll see if Ollie Watkins can finally get a goal. It's only been 2 games. It will be his 3rd one, but we've all been kind of scratching our heads as to why Ollie Watkins, who played so well all of last season, hasn't gotten a goal yet. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Mac, any of these 2 games stand out to you, or any other games stand out to you from this weekend?
No, none of the above. I'll keep it a buck. No.
Okay, well then, do you want to go straight into a potential transfer that you want to see in the last day of the transfer window?
Absolutely. So my dream transfer, just because it's hilarious, that I desperately want to see. No. Okay, that's my second dream transfer. Nico Williams to Arsenal. Thank you. I think every club, would be like, okay, if we could get Nico Williams this summer, would they be happy? Absolutely. Would they overpay him? Don't have to. You pay at the buyout clause, but he's being a good boy and staying with this current team. That's good for him. All the best. Whatever. Since that's unrealistic, I really want to see the Sterling Sancho switch happen, because I think it's hilarious on several levels across the whole entire board. Sancho, if he's going to Chelsea, why? What's the difference? Is to, instead of being 8th number on the wing, he's going to be 10th? Like, I don't understand the benefit there. Maybe he just prefers the bald head of Maresca versus the bald head of Ten Hag. I don't know. That could be. I don't know. I don't get it. For Chelsea's perspective, there is no reason football-wise why it would make sense, which makes me believe they very much would be inclined to do it, because that's how they've done it so far, is this accumulation of assets. If we buy everybody, who's left over to play against us? However, in this situation, they are sending somebody else out, Raheem Sterling. If he goes on from growing up and playing for Liverpool, then playing for Man City, to then play for United, what's the triangle in one of the seas that everyone goes to, but the ship crashes. Do you know Bermuda
The
Triangle?
Bermuda Triangle.
Is it like that, or like is there going to be like the Antichrist showing up in the middle of it? I don't know. Anything could happen. It's just I don't know if there's been a player of that high end who will go down as a Hall of Famer in the Premier League, no questions asked. Played for all three of these teams.
Yeah.
Like it would be perfect. I want it to happen so badly, so badly. Probably here's what I think will happen. I think Sancho's not going anywhere. If anything, I think he stays. I think it's a depression for up until January. They'll deal with it then. He'll probably go out some loan for the remaining of the season. And I actually think what's going to end up happening, this is my guess, I think Sterling goes to Arsenal, which I don't necessarily love. It's okay. I'll take it if it's if they're able to cut the wages and it's basically no transfer fee. Cool, that's fine. But what I want to see for us as hosts of a podcast that talk about football is the Sterling Sancho trade. I would love to see that.
It's it's funny because they're both in a Burna Boy video, and they're both just tossed around like nobody's business. Secondly, I think almost a perfect comparison is he is the English Alvaro Morata, who's played for big club after big club and has just been tossed around. Yes, he's shown some results here and there. He's scored some big goals in his career. But I think the perfect comparison for the average football fan is if you think of Alvaro Morata but English and 4 feet shorter, you'd have Raheem Sterling. So. There you go, Raheem.
I think I'll be Gio. I love the take. I think it's a slight disrespect on Sterling. At one point, and this again, you guys both may laugh at this. At one point, many people in the world were talking about Sterling being in that echelon under giving his youth when he first went to Man City, playing under Pep Guardiola. When he was the best player in that squad above a Kevin De Bruyne at one point, where he was scoring 20 goals a season. I understand we've learned better since then. But he was in the talk of, underneath the Ronaldo Messi's, he's in that next category, guys. He's on the way. Again, didn't work out, but that was the conversation around him. Morata ain't sniffing that on his best day. Like he's four tiers below that if we're ranking it. But I love the take.
Well, Gio, on that sense, I agree with you what you guys are saying. It doesn't make sense for either team really, it doesn't make sense for either player to make a move of that sort this late into the transfer window, of course. But for the teams, I guess it would make sense. The only reason being is for Chelsea, now that you've made it public you don't want him at the club, you can get rid of him and bring on Sancho, who he's not playing at Man U right now. Doesn't mean so that means that he's already not used to playing. So he can be another player that can sort of join the practice squad if need be. And then for Man U, you get a player who is pretty experienced. He might not be getting the best PR if he makes the move to Manchester after playing for Liverpool and Man City, but who knows? He could feature and maybe sort of bring an extra sort of attacking option for Man U. So I think that those are the main reasons that I can sort of see it in terms of you're already in a really bad position at your club. Maybe a switch can change things up, but it's so late into the transfer window that it really just makes it look like a last gasp attempt to make something positive out of two very negative situations here. So I'm not sure what happens there. Gio, Max noted, of course, Osimhen and Antony, two strikers who may be looking to move in the last day of the transfer window. Do these or any other transfers in general sort of stand out to you as we head to the last day of the transfer window before it closes? What do you think, Gio?
No, I don't think it really have much chance of kind of happening. I think speaking about Osimhen, is his situation in Napoli, I think, is a little bit better. I think he can have another great season and then drive up his value again. He doesn't even need to have a great season. He just needs to be the top scorer of that team. And I don't think that would be too hard, with him being their main offensive threat. And then, you can go the next summer for even more money and make even more money on a weekly basis rather than going to a shithole in Stamford Bridge right now. Yes, they have won a game, but take that with a grain of salt. you get nobody providing you the ball there per se, and you have a plethora of offensive players that are scraping for minutes at this point. And then if you want to make more money, you know Todd Bowley is rich, but Saudi Arabia is different, man. So does he really want to go make more money over there at the peak of his career? Say, I don't think it's the right time either. So I don't think Osman's really coming or going anywhere. I think the best situation for him is at Napoli right now, to tough it out for one more season, and then hopefully find a better suitor. And maybe not Chelsea, or any team that we thought of, but in a year a lot can change. So maybe a better situation comes up for him.
Definitely, and of course the other player is Anthony, who as well has been linked to Chelsea. And the first initial reactions to this, and I'm sure you guys have come across some of these memes, are if Anthony does join Chelsea, who will be taking the penalty kicks? Of course, Cole Palmer is the main guy there that takes all the penalty kicks. But Anthony is great at taking penalties as well. So, not sure what will happen with that. Mac, I guess same question to you. Anything about these two players or any other transfers that stand out to you?
So one, the whole like Saudi Arabia thing, I guess it was like, is it the new China league from like a couple of years ago when we talked about? Because no one's gone. It was a one season flash. No one cares anymore. It looks like no one's been able to offload their problems. I think Joao Cancelo is the best player that signed for a Saudi Arabian team. I've never cared about Joao Cancelo in the last 3 years as anybody. No. But the point being is for these two players, again, Osimhen, I think outside of actual on the pitch success, I could see why he would go to Chelsea, because last season there have been a lot of reports of, I guess, his unpleasantness and his mistreatment from some of the fans and even the social media team from Napoli. And as well, Gio, you referenced a shithole. I don't know if you've ever been to Naples. From what I hear, it's pretty much a shithole. So getting out of there might be a little bit better. I can understand that, but on the pitch, no conversation. Champions League versus Conference League. Like, obviously, the choice is very simple and clear there, right? So, in regards to Ivan Toney, I think the recent reports have actually been linked him to go outside the Premier League, to maybe be that big star. If Ivan Toney's a big star to go to a Saudi Arabia, sure, that's likely. That's fine. He's 28, turning 29, I think it is. He's towards the tail end of his career, and he still wants to view himself as a star man. Cool, go do that. I'm very much, aside from the players that we talked about, it would be interesting to see whether action does take place on the deadline day. I think there's still a lot of teams that, especially since we focus on the Premier League, I think no team other than Manchester City probably view themselves as complete, and are probably not looking. I think everyone else is still trying to make some business happen for the final day of the transfer window. So very excited to see what happens. But aside from the names we talked about, at least like nothing kind of strikes out to me.
Yeah, and so we're going to cover, of course, a lot of games that are taking place in our next podcast, and of course, look at some transfers that do take place from now until when the window shuts, which likely is in the next 24 hours. So this concludes our podcast for today, guys. If you guys like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. That's at @house_of_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, get in touch with us via email as well. houseoffooty@hotmail.com is our email. Next time you hear from us will be Tuesday when we review match week 3 of the Premier League. But until then, thank you, Mac, for joining us.
Peace out.
Thank you, Gio.
Go easy, Liverpool. Go easy.
See you guys soon.